Let's take a look at 2024 D&D's level 3 spells that are new or changed so far through the playtest number 8. We have Blinding Smite, Conjure Barrage, Conjure Animals, Counterspell, Mass Healing Word, Memorize Spell, which has since been dropped, and Sorceress Vitality. Starting with Blinding Smite, a paladin spell, 3rd level. It gets the same treatment as the other paladin spells. A bonus action that triggers when you hit with a melee weapon or an unarmed strike, so you no longer have to cast it and concentrate until you hit. Other than that change, it is the same as it is today. Our next spell is Conjure Barrage. This is also from playtest number 6. This is a ranger spell. It specifies a cost now for the ammo that you use, but it doesn't specify if it's used up, so that's not clear to me. Several nice updates to the spell here, which I almost never saw used, and maybe you'll see some more use now. You get to choose which creatures are affected by the spell, but you do have to see them, so at once a benefit and a detriment at the same time. The damage has gone up a little bit, and you can now do it at higher levels. You can scale it up. Our next spell being Conjure Animals came to us in playtest number 8, and the Conjure spells got a wholesale update where they're basically nothing like they were before. So if we look at the old Conjure Animal spell, it certainly had problems with it. You could conjure 8 beasts of challenge rating a quarter or lower. You get 8 poisonous snakes, which have blind sides. You combine that with darkness, and this spell is just ridiculously overpowered and takes up all the action economy. A lot of things going against it. I would always run this where I would pick the monsters and make them kind of appropriate to where the party was, and it would certainly never be 8 poisonous snakes, but still, it was a really powerful spell. Now, the new spell, it has more in common with Spirit Guardians than it does with Conjure Animals. Spirit Guardians is a spell, though, that I think needs to see some attention because it's a little overpowered, but this comes in and has about the same power as Spirit Guardians, so there's a good chance we don't see Spirit Guardians change in its power very much. So the Conjure Animals is Druid and Ranger. It has got a range of 60 feet versus Self for Spirit Guardians. You summon a large swarm, so rather than being basically a 35-foot cube, is about how big a current Spirit Guardians is, but centered on you. It is a 10 by 10 cube. Spectral animals, you gotta do it in an unoccupied space, so that may constrain you. It's gotta be a space you can see within range. That may also constrain you. But the fact that it doesn't have to be on you gives you a lot more leeway on where to place it. Then you don't have to worry about, as you do with Spirit Guardians, identifying who's not affected by it when you cast it. So that's a benefit. When a creature hostile to you enters a space within 10 feet of the swarm for the first time on a turn or starts its turn there, you make a melee attack against that creature, melee spell attack. So now you're controlling the hit. You can apply your various powers to make it work versus the creature getting a saving throw. So the creature is not in control anymore and can't benefit from legendary resistance anymore. So that's all beneficial to the caster there. On a hit, the target takes radiant damage equal to 2d10, so that's an average of 11 damage. Spirit Guardians was doing 3d8. That's an average of 13.5 damage, I believe. So slightly less damage, but you get to add your spellcasting ability modifier. That's going to bring it right on up to being on par, if not better, usually, than Spirit Guardians would be. You have advantage on strength saving throws while you're within 10 feet of the swarm. Nice little kicker power there for you. When you move on your turn, you can also move the swarm up to 30 feet. Again, better than Spirit Guardians, so you can stay put behind the lines and be throwing this right in the midst of your enemies. And it goes up at higher levels. So this is a powerful spell. Conjure Animals. I'm glad they are replacing the old Conjure Animals form, but with this kind of power, I think maybe Fireball needs a kicker because it's starting to pale compared to some of these Spirit Guardians and Conjure Animals. Okay, so that was Conjure Animals. Our next spell is Counterspell. This came to us in playtest number 7. So Counterspell sees a pretty big change. This spell was always pretty interesting to adjudicate. It led to some pretty interesting back and forth spell battles. But if the party had more casters with the spell than the enemies had, they basically shut down the enemies. It was definitely a gotcha spell for inexperienced DMs who would maybe move in too close, cast a spell, and just have it get shut down. Whereas experienced DMs would know the range of it, know to, do things to counter, if you'll, so to speak, the counter spell. But anyway, so the new spell, it puts all the power with the target. It's a reaction, just like before. You see a creature within 60 feet casting a spell with verbal, somatic, or material components. So that's kind of a new definition of it. Used to be just see a creature casting a spell. That creature gets to make a Constitution saving throw. On a fail, the spell is dissipated with no effect. and the action, bonus action, or reaction used to cast it is wasted, but the slot was not expended. Now this one is basically at the control of the person being affected. If it's you and you have anything that you can do to boost the saving throw, you can do that to help you get through this. If it's a legendary enemy, they can use legendary resistance to get through it. So it's not going to shut down as much the legendary enemies like Counterspell used to be able to shut down. I think this is a good change for the spell. I think it's going to be better for gameplay overall. Next spell we have is Mass Healing Word. This came to us with playtest number 8. This spell's now an abjuration spell instead of evocation. I think Bard is added. I don't think current Bards get Mass Healing Word. The healing is improved from 1d4 to 2d4, so another 2.5 points of healing. Not a big change there. I'm surprised that at higher levels only goes up by a d4 per slot instead of 2d4 per slot. That's Mass Healing Word. Our last one is Sorceress Vitality, which we got at playtest number 5. This spell is, as far as I know, completely new. It is a 3rd level abjuration spell for sorcerers. Casting time is an action, range is self. You draw on your innate magic to fill yourself with vitality. You regain a number of hit points equal to 2d6 plus your spellcasting ability modifier. And if you have any of the following conditions, they end blind, deaf, poison. At higher levels, you regain more hit points. Now, this Sorceress Vitality, that's the level 3 spells. What level 3 spells have we not seen that you would like to see? For me, it'd be Spirit Guardians would be the one. But given the Conjure Animals is on par in power with Spirit Guardians, I don't suspect a change in the power of Spirit Guardians. I'm not a fan of the 10-minute long spells. It leads parties to like blindly rush through a dungeon to try and use them up. So I'm not a fan of that either, but given that the new spells have it, looks like that's going to be here to stay. So that's it for level 3 spells. Thanks for checking out the video.